Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another segment of Do It Different. From parenting to business, from the bedroom to the boardroom, how to engage in the moments of your life differently so that you can experience your very own different kind of happy. I'm here with Tim McKey, who I have been saying McKey for way too long and found out today that he would prefer to keep it McKey, owner of McKey Business Group
Correct.
and partner of Vista Consulting, and a very non-traditional CPA who's here to offer you some insights as to how to engage in change differently so that you can make the changes that are important in your life to create the kind of life that you want to live. So without further ado, Mr. Tim, what would you like to share with our audience regarding how to engage in change
Wow.
differently?
Very open-ended question. I'll try to give a little bit of quick history of how I arrived at where I am today at 55 years old, which I'm happy to say that. I'm not ashamed. I'm try to enjoy every day. But my story is born and raised in a very rural, small town in Mississippi. Got an accounting degree and passed the CPA exam in the early 80s. Took a job, as I was encouraged to do, at a international CPA firm. It was a Big Eight at the time. I think they've now consolidated. I call them the Final Four now.
Oh, wow.
They've consolidated and worked at that firm for a couple of years, doing traditional auditing and accounting tax work, and realized after a while that this probably the big organization may not be for me. It had to do with some personal, interrelationship type things. Hey, I see the partners here. If I'm successful, I'm going to be one of these guys, and I don't know if that's what I really want to do with myself. Since an international firm, there was partners all over the world, and I guess my small town upbringing kind of said, hey, do you want to be partners with people you don't know? Mm-hmm. And so I started looking around, got an opportunity to took on with a smaller group, and that evolved a little bit, and ended up as a partner with a very close friend and business person. Her name is Sandy O'Brien. She and I formed a company together. Sandy has since retired and is doing some other things, but in any event, we joined forces, and I guess the different part of my story is when I was in my mid to late 30s, I started realizing that I wasn't enjoying what I was doing every day. Mm-hmm. And that's where change began to occur. It first occurred between my ears before it actually manifested itself. And I was going to work and, again, just not enjoying it. I felt like that it was kind of necessary evil type work, that we were giving people a tax return, we were doing some financial things for them, but we weren't interpreting the data or helping them run their business. And I didn't even know that that's what I was missing at the time. I just knew that I was always very busy. I was always very behind, it seemed, and we were actually charging for our services on an hourly basis, which also, I didn't realize it at the time, but caused me a lot of trouble in that the better and faster I did things, the less money I would make. So it never quite fit together for me that hourly was the way to actually do things, especially things that what I call that knowledge workers do, people who think for a living, which is basically what we do. So I had a moment of desperation where I told my partner Sandy, and actually told my wife, we'd been discussing it earlier, that I wasn't happy and that I really felt like I needed to make some change. I didn't know what that change meant, but I knew that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And again, it was not a financially driven decision for me, but we can always have more money and always have more time. So, I don't want anyone to think that I was financially set or anything, but the current income wasn't a reason. It would have to do with just the mental aspect of where I was. So. To Sandy's credit, she took me into a room and we stayed for a couple of weeks and talked about the things that, hey, Tim, what do you really like to do? Where do you think we are bringing value? And those things manifested themselves in And when people called and just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, what do you think? And we're thinking about a new product line, or my gross profit is going up and down. Can you help us think that through? Or, Susie doesn't like to sit next to John. Even things that are along those lines that you don't think of talking to an accountant about, but they were business related, and those were the things that interested me. And as it turned out, and I guess my customers and clients for the judge, I have a little bit of a talent in to be able to help people think through those type things and to make decisions in a different way. It's not necessarily all about the numbers, but numbers give us data. But I always say we have to get behind the numbers. What does that mean? How can we affect business growth? And generally, we ask our clients to define success for us now, which we never did in the past. And we get a lot of interesting comments, some of which the easy answer is always, I want to make more money. But when we press a little bit, sometimes we find that it's not about the money. It's about more time. It's about a smoother running operation. It's about making sure that Susie and John do get along. And if they can't, how do we negotiate the best outcomes? We became very outcome driven as opposed to very input driven. In that we're very curious about what our clients say is a success, and we try to help them build a roadmap to that, whatever that means. And it can mean lots of different things to lots of different people and businesses. And that's what we've evolved to in regard to our, what I now call our consulting CPA group. And we try not to be overly selective in who we work with, but in fact we are. It needs to be a very good fit for us, that we believe that we can bring true value, not just what I now term the necessary evil services of, hey, here's your tax return, or here's a financial statement that because your bank needs it, or something along those lines. So it's become much more personal, and it certainly fits my personality a lot better. And Fee knows that I say this a lot. It's all about me.
And because he say that, we know that he's a good guy. It's those people who pretend they're not, and then they consume all the attention that we really need to be worried about. So it's okay that you can say that.
Well, I say it, and I usually try to follow it up with, it's all about me, because everybody, if I have that thought, then there are other people that have that thought. And I'm just generally put it out there that, hey, I'm thinking this, what does that mean for you? And that's the type of relationships that we've built with our customers and our clients. And it really carries over into our personal lives as well. And, as I said before, my decision to change a business model was beget not for financial reasons, but for other reasons, quality of life reasons. And, I think, and I have no way of actually knowing or proving this, that there are a lot of people who feel trapped in their professions or in their jobs, that because, hey, we're making this amount of money, if I change this, then there's a big risk. And I personally feel like the risk is more prevalent if you don't make those changes. And my change, as I just discussed, came about a little bit from a point of desperation, that, hey, I knew I needed to do something. What we like to help our clients make a change from a different point, which is a change from a point of inspiration. Getting to the desperation phase, as I lived it, was really not a lot of fun. But it certainly took away any perception of risk that I had, because whatever change occurred was going to be better than I felt like I was at that time. So it was easier for me to jump in. So I hope that's
great.
Please jump in and ask questions, because I could go on
I
forever.
do, because I have so many exciting pieces of information popping up in my head. First, I'd like to touch on your experience of getting to change from the point of desperation. You've done it, you don't suggest it, and I love the idea of making change from the place of inspiration. So for someone who is not enjoying his work or her work, not enjoying where he or she is in life, how can you encourage that person to go ahead and take the risk and make the change from the place of inspiration, and don't wait another year, 2 years, 5 years to get to that desperation point?
Mhm. I think, and gosh, it's kind of interesting. It all could even come back to yoga experiences, being mindful of where you are. My experience, and again, that's the easiest one to talk about, was one that I felt like I was doing what the world expected me to do. I was just following a path because that was the only path that I had seen, and that's what people who in fact, were an accountant or a CPA, that's what they did. And becoming aware, my experience was through desperation, that I'm really terribly unhappy. What I would like to help business owners and just friends and acquaintances in general get to a place of looking inward before it becomes so painful that it doesn't matter what the outcome truly is. Anything's better than that. So if you can be mindful of where you are, just, am I enjoying my earthly experience here, whatever that means. And I don't mean willy-nilly, total going from one happiness event to another, but contentment and happy with life, happy with friends. So it's important to kind of do a self-evaluation. In the business sense, we call those needs assessments. We get with our customers or clients, and look, you and I have even had some of these discussions of where are we? What is it that makes us happy? And I again facetiously say it's all about me. It's really all about all of us. Where are we? What do we want out of life? When you look at an obituary, frankly, they're all kind of the same. I don't know that I want mine to be any different. I'm not saying that, but it's that point of what happens up until then. Have we brought real value and meaningfulness to our friends, to the people that we've actually worked for and with? Absolutely. And so being mindful is the very first thing. If you can say that, I'm not in a bad place, but things could be better. What are those things? And then they're things that are neither, immoral, unethical, illegal things.
Take those out first.
Take those out first. Yeah, absolutely, take those out first. But things that sometimes we call it, what do we tolerate? What things are we tolerating in our lives that we could possibly change if we just did something a little bit different? Some of those things can be discussions with loved ones, can be discussions with team members, and I call your employees team members. I think that's another distinction that we've made. We're all heading in the same direction. This deal of management and staff, or management and employees, we try to throw those words out. I mean, we're really a team, and how can we work together? And being able to build a team, I feel, is very important. And that team, by the way, could be a family. I don't, my personal beliefs come into it a little bit, of course, since it's all about me, that, there's not in my opinion, there's not a business world, a personal world, a spiritual world. It's one world. And how do these things fit together where they can be very integrated and have a common theme, a common purpose? And when we talk to our friends and acquaintances about this, sometimes they, I facetiously say, sometimes they look at you like a monkey doing a math problem. Like, what do you mean? But when the light bulb can go off and people begin to get it, and you can have very good, meaningful discussions, and that's very fun for me, and that's what kind of lights my fire and all that. Now, I like money and toys. Don't get me wrong. That's all great.
Well, that's where I want to head to, the money part, because you are a CPA, so we're going to pick your brain about money. Okay. Because, for a lot of people, when they think of making a change, one of the biggest red flags that limit people from making change is money. Mm-hmm. Stepping into the unknown is scary, and what about the security that I have? Even though I'm miserable in it, I have some sense of security here because there's money here. Mm-hmm. What do you say about the money factor when change is knocking on the door?
I don't think that we should, again, using my silly terms, willy-nilly jump into things because we're just not happy. I think first thing is being mindful, understanding where we are and where we want to be, then doing some planning, some real thinking of what type of financial investment, the money, what do I need to make that happen? And a lot of times, honestly, we found out it's not a lot of money. We get these things in our head that, I can't do that because of this, this, and this, and I don't have the money. Sometimes we find just through reallocation of current resources, you can make the change. Or if it's truly, is all about the money at that point, then where are we going to get it? Are we, there's a risk in going to a bank. Maybe we can't even borrow from a bank. Maybe we do need a partner. Maybe we try to find the rich uncle or the angel investor or those type of things. Every situation fee is, in my experience, has been very different. To evaluate the financial resources needed to make a change is probably, honestly, one of the easier parts to making change. When we begin working with a customer, and of course we have a lot of conversation before we even start, one of the things that I say a lot of is, look, the easiest thing you're going to do is write a check. The hardest thing you're going to do is decide to change, make a change, and be consistent in your effort to keep up what is the right thing to do. But we have been trained by experience or tradition to do things a certain way. If we can break free of that and say, you know what, I can do it the way that fits me. And I need to break in and say one other thing. I don't want anyone that's listening to this or you to think that what I'm doing is right and the way other CPAs are practicing in their world is wrong. That is totally not what I'm saying. This just happens to fit with my individual needs and wants that are personal and where I feel like I bring value. Certainly not saying that doing it any other way, you can't find that same niche of happiness and contentment, et cetera. Sometimes people read into that I'm being overly critical of my chosen profession, and I'm really not. Yeah. It's just a compliment. So I don't know if I got to your question.
Thank you for clarifying that. Absolutely, because sometimes just putting it down on paper is really helpful. Having another set of eyes to look at the situation and ask questions that we may not be asking ourselves is really helpful. Because when we keep it up here, between here, it's a really dangerous space, and you just turn all those thoughts and all those worries around, and it's not necessary. Just get it on paper, and like you said, the solution may be right there, and we're just not seeing it.
Absolutely. I tend to use a lot of quotes and a lot of cliches in just my everyday life, and it's come to me that I do that because in lots of cases they're just so true. The old forest and trees deal. I can't see the forest for the trees. Well, when you're inside, a lot of times you truly can't, and that's why I think that there is a huge benefit to having outside advisors or mentors in your life in all areas. And again, that probably sounds very self-serving because in lots of cases I serve as one of those outside resources, but I have them too. I have people that I think I may be too deep in the forest to see the trees, and I will call and say, hey, let me just throw a scenario out to you, and you give me some feedback because I'm too close to the situation. And that's something that I think is very important. Again, does that have anything to do with being a CPA or accountant? Probably not. But again, going back to, I think this is all one world. What are we really trying to achieve is even a bigger picture. So, and again, part of my frustration with what I'll say the traditional accounting world for me was I felt pigeonholed, if you will, that the world thinks that this is where I am and really I would need to be, and I think my expertise and talents, quite honestly, can be over here, and they can tie together. So did I do it differently? I probably did it weirdly. more weird than different.
I think it was Marilyn Monroe who said that there's a little bit of crazy in all of us, something like that.
Probably more in me. I mean, you can talk to Jody, my wife. She'll probably second that notion.
Yeah, it's good to have a second opinion. We may have to do a follow-up segment with Jody. Well, one of the things that you say, which really resonates with me, Tim, is the fact that it's for each of us to discover our strengths and what gives us joy, because I think we're happy when we're producing, and when we're not happy is because one of the reasons is we're producing in an area that doesn't fit or isn't in alignment with us. So for you, taking that time and discovering that those few 2 weeks or so that you stayed in that room to really begin to discover what is it that feeds me, and that becomes the source of what I offer back into the world, and being successful because you found your niche or your calling or whatever word you want to give it.
I think you're right, and I think we should still be careful with those things. And I'll give you one example. I like to play tennis. Okay. I love to play tennis, and it's a good outlet, even though I don't do it as much as I would like to sometimes. But I can't make a living and feed my family and be successful. Even though it makes me happy in the moment, the happiness and contentment and being fulfilled are two very different things. And I think sometimes it's all about me, can get those mixed up. I would love to play tennis a lot more, but being productive and doing things that benefit me, my family, my acquaintances over the long term, it really is just much more important. And again, that's just thinking about it that way. I think most of the world's religions have to do with a philosophy and how we think. And that's no different in our daily lives. It's all one world. How do we get there? What is right for us? And again, staying away from those immoral, unethical, illegal things. Obviously, is their parameters, their structures. And talking about structures, I mean, business have structures. There are best practices in almost every business that have over the span of time have proved that businesses that do these things are more successful than others. And we're not throwing those out and saying, hey, you've got to reinvent a wheel. What are the best practices? What fits well with you in your business or in your life that can make you different and successful? I'm a firm believer people buy differences that they perceive. They buy them, meaning they buy into a friendship. They buy into you helping them in their business. There's lots of different types of buy-in. But I believe just about all of us buy differences in people that we admire and perceive. So,
thank you for that clarification. A very important one. So, like, I love to eat. Doesn't mean I want to eat every day or eat for a living. That would be a really bad thing.
Exactly.
So, wonderful. Just to recap, I guess first is to know that where you are is not nourishing you in terms of wanting to make a change.
Evaluation. Where are we?
Part of that evaluation is looking at even what I'm tolerating that I don't need to tolerate. I really like that. So that you can really enhance the quality of your life. And then second is to get some mentors and advisors or friends to actually look at the situation with you.
Absolutely. Right. And I'll say that most of what you're hearing today, really are not original thoughts by Tim. I would love to take credit for it, but most of them are from books I've read, from people that I admire, from my mentors who have helped me see things more clearly. So I'm kind of simply parroting, if you will, some of the things that I have heard and that have been successful. So I don't want you or anyone listening to this to think, hey, Tim's got everything together. He really doesn't. I'm still on the journey. We learn something, or I learn something every day, but being mindful of those things. Hey, what is important? I mean, it was a friend of mine who used the word tolerate. What are you tolerating? And I thought, gosh, what a very interesting way to look at it. And it had helped bring clarity to the things that I needed to change. And so again, just kind of rocking through life and bouncing around. I'm not saying that's not right for some people. It wasn't for me. I needed a little more thoughtfulness into it, and where do I want to be, and who do I want to be with, etc.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's an original thought anymore. We've been around too long. It's all remixed.
Right, I think you're right.
What's special is that it's all mixed through you, and it's now coming out from you, because that has never happened before. So that's where I think the originality is. Okay.
I'll take that.
Okay, well, good. I like that. And then third, I guess, after you have other pairs of eyes looking at it with you, is to choose a course that is sustainable and meets your other, I guess, responsibilities, making sure that you're still taking care of your family, taking care of yourself, taking care of your responsibilities, leaving all those um, activities that are not supportive of our long-term health and well-being, as well as the health and well-being of our family. And then fourth would be to make that change.
To make the
And stay
change,
consistent.
yeah, stay consistent.
Yes.
And when I say that, that doesn't mean that I think you should never change course once you've decided to do something. I mean, my life is still changing courses. You know, if you would have told me even last year I would be doing some of the things professionally that I'm doing now, and again, that specifically is in regard to travel and talking to people across the country, I would say, you know, there's no way, you know, I'm too small a town for that. But it has occurred, and I had to actually think about that. Gosh, you know, I'm going to be talking to people in, pick a state, California or in Florida, and they actually may listen to me. So how am I going to respond and be mindful that we may not have the same culture? Even here in the U.S., you know, how can I relate to them? And that, again, came to a lot of listening, you know, trying to understand. So even though I've been known to say we need to plant our flag and make the change, yes, do that. But also know that that flag is not planted permanently. You know, you can change that. If things come up, certainly we can alter our course. But you know, here's another cliche: the rocket cannot change its course until it leaves the pad. Mm-hmm. Okay, so plant the flag, make the change. And I know that's so general and cliche-ish, but what are those little things you can begin to change? Start making those little steps, whatever they are. You know, for us, way back when, it was, we're not going to keep our time anymore. We're not going to bill by hours. It didn't make any sense. Well, everybody else does it. Well, we're not going to do it. You know, we'll figure out another way. So that was just one little bitty step in a long list of changes and way that we migrated our business to another model. And again, we have changed it many times since. And just being aware that the first change doesn't mean that we need to stick with it, even though I preach consistency. But if we realize that we've leaned our ladder against the wrong wall, even though we're the best ladder climber in the world, we're still not going to get where we need to be. So those are the things that I think make the change. Do something. You know, let the rocket leave the pad, and then just be aware of where you're trying to get to, and you may need to alter that course. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I think it's admirable, to be honest.
Takes a lot of courage.
Well, it takes more courage when you have been inspired, because I felt like there wasn't a lot of courage needed when I was desperate, because I was going to change. You know, I didn't know where I would end up. So being inspired, I think, to make some changes on your own accord, where you're hey, my life could be better, actually requires a little more courage than coming at it from a point of desperation. So
absolutely. Thank you so much, Tim.
You're very welcome.
I love it.
It's fun.
I love
it's
it.
Fun.
And I think for me, what I've hear you share, the quality underneath all of that, those steps, is mindfulness. To be thoughtful, to listen to yourself, to listen to others, to be mindful through the journey, and make those fine-tuning all along the way.
I wholeheartly agree. You know, I'm trying to understand what's good for you, that's also good for those around you, and try to get those in alignment. And it simply works. And I can't believe I'm sitting here with a yoga teacher talking about that in business. So.
I love it. And we want Tim to actually get his message out there. One of his items on his bucket list, I'm going to throw it in there as a bucket list. Maybe it's not his bucket list item, but he would like to be able to share this message to more people and get on the stage of TED Talk. So if there's an opportunity for you to check out LSU's website and vote for Tim to be one of their speakers for the next TED Talk event, we would really, really appreciate it. And if you want to contact Tim and work with him, his phone number is
at 225-383-8255. 2974 is my office number. And again, I love to talk to people. I like people, and feel free to give me a call anytime.
Great. And Tim and I would love to hear from you. Or is there a change in your life that you want to make? Please share it in the comment box below. What piece of Tim's wisdom did you like most? Share that in the comment box below. And also, maybe you've experienced some successful changes in your life and have some wisdom to share. Please place that in the comment box below. Thank you so much for watching. Namaste.
Thank you, Fee. Namaste.
Thank you.